Welcome to the Homeschool Together podcast. Where one working mom and a stay-at-home dad help you navigate the nuts and bolts of the growing and dynamic world of homeschooling.
With a focus on early learners, like me.
All the ins and outs of building and maintaining your homeschool life.
Homeschool.
Find out tips and tricks to make things like this easier.
I'm reading.
And ultimately, enjoy educating your kids. And what's that last thing?
Have fun together. Did I do good, Daddy?
Yeah, you did, sweetie. Good job. Hello and welcome to Homeschool Together. Thanks for joining us today. We are continuing our series of first-year homeschoolers, that kind of an addendum to our Homeschool Journeys podcast series, and where we interview people who have just finished their first year of homeschooling. So we'd love to, share these new stories with you. But before we begin, everything we talk about today, which there will be a few things, will be down in the show notes. We will be interviewing Tresa Kaur, and she also has a website and an Instagram feed. So feel free to go and like and follow all her stuff, and that'll be down in the show notes. But before we begin, join us on Instagram, join us on Facebook, do all the needful things. But most importantly, like Venus rising in the morning,
What?
get thee to iTunes and leave us a beautiful, warm, glowing on the horizon review.
We appreciate all 12 of you that have reviewed thus far,
The
but it really
disciples,
helps
yes.
folks to find us. But this interview, Tresa was wonderful.
Yeah, so she's on the East Coast.
Yeah, it was a little late. It got a little giggly at points. The thing is, there was a lot of editing in this one because we just kept laughing because she was lovely to interview,
Yeah,
and we
was.
had lots in common to talk about.
But those edits will be clean. They'll be like it's seamless.
Yeah, it was great because this is our first interview last week with Sarah was not specifically a COVID homeschooler.
Mm-hmm.
And Tresa and her family are, right? Wasn't exactly what they had planned. Her daughter was going to a Montessori school, and COVID changed their plan. So it was really fun to hear from somebody who had to pivot, and all of the joy that she's found in homeschooling. And just, I found it really inspiring. If you're a new homeschooler or a prospective homeschooler, listening to somebody like Tresa talk is just... it fills me with all the fuzzies, the warm and fuzzies about why we just love this, why we've chosen this journey for our family.
Yeah, not only is she into game schooling like we are, and a lot of the people who are listening, she's got the young learners, I think 3 and 6 and 7, that type of age. She's got 2. But also we've had back-to-back eclectic homeschoolers.
I know.
Ones that kind of like hop around. They love trying new things. Yeah, I know.
Aren't we all? Aren't we all? And even if you follow a curriculum, I imagine you have,
Those moments.
some extra piece of something that you pull in. Your little bit of eclectic side comes out. I just, why? Because there's so many great things, right? If we were homeschooling 30 years ago, we would have a very limited amount of material that we could choose from. But as we are now, the amount of printed material is huge. And then the amount of digital material goes beyond even that, right? Yeah. So there's just so many wonderful choices. How could anyone choose?
I know, it's amazing.
Right? It's great. Why would we not want to do all the things with our kids? Sometimes we have to rein ourselves in from doing everything. It was funny, we were talking about collecting curriculum. I said, no, we're just curators of fantastic educational content. That's all.
But also what's nice also is we've had back-to-back educators, with Sarah being an educator for kind of the lower grades.
Yeah,
third grade, early elementary. Tresa is an educator at the college level, and actually post, I think doctorate level educator for nurses who want to get into education, teaching at, pretty prestigious university here in the United States.
Yeah, it's interesting to talk to educators.
It is, and it's interesting to hear their take coming from the classroom into the homeschool room, and how much they embrace that, and how, I wouldn't say like completely different, but it is different in that sense.
Sure.
And I think you'll hear that in the interview today, the way Tresa kind of came into this blossoming experience, the way she describes her homeschooling life and that kind of that evolution over the last year. I think you will hear it in her voice, how much, homeschooling means to her and her family. I think that just came through in the interview. And I think that was, the most endearing part of it, that she really loves homeschooling. And I think that being your first year can be very daunting. It can be very scary,
Sure.
especially when you're dipping your toes into it.
And you weren't planning
and she
to.
wasn't planning. Like, she was sending her daughter to a Montessori, and that was her plan. And then she had to pivot, and there's a lot of fear and anxiety there, and you can tell how she jumped into it. She's very articulate,
Really wholeheartedly.
very articulate, very smart mom, and she's doing a great job. So let's hop into the interview with Tresa Kaur.
Hi, Tresa. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so grateful for this opportunity to share my experiences homeschooling.
We're so excited to have you continuing our first year homeschooler series. So, give us a bit of background about your family and what drove y'all to homeschool.
We are COVID homeschoolers, and we do have food allergies in the family as well. So that definitely influenced our decision to homeschool this year. There is a global pandemic, which is another reason. I'm a pediatric nurse by background, and I teach for a university. I teach nurses who want to go on for doctoral degrees to become scholars and researchers and educators. My family, my husband is working from home. And so he used to be in the office. We used to share an office, and now I kicked him to the basement. So now he's there. And I have a daughter. She's 6 years old, almost 7. And I have a 3-year-old son.
Did you, when you decided to go into homeschooling, you were obviously coming out of a traditional education, world. What was that change like? How did you pivot fast? And, were you able to choose a curriculum that you liked, or how did you adapt, an existing education style that you might have already known?
Yeah, my kids were in a Montessori school,
Okay.
and then they went to remote learning about March of last year. And, they actually did not do the Zoom calls, or they weren't, I taught them how to use Google Classroom actually, so I did like an in-service with them one time, and then these teachers were so great, and then they got onto it, and so they developed some asynchronous sessions, and slowly they started some synchronous sessions, and I realized that I just wanted to do something for my kids. I wanted that learning to continue at home. So I started, believe it or not, on YouTube and, a Google search. And, I found out about all of this wealth of information about homeschooling, which I knew very little about. I'm going to be completely honest with you. And I did also look into Montessori style homeschooling. Slowly, I realized that I am kind of like an eclectic homeschooler in that, I don't want to prescribe or subscribe to one specific area. I want to kind of dabble in everything. And I think that follows and aligns a lot with the Montessori curriculum and the, you know, hands-on learning and the manipulatives that come with it. And so I was able to try different curricula throughout this journey, and I feel like I have so many things on my bookshelf and downloaded to my computer just like everybody else. And we tried things, and my daughter is so easygoing that I feel like everything worked for her. At one point I had 4 math programs going, and then I said, so which one do you like the best? And she said, I really like all of them, don't get rid of it. And so, we just did and it was very student led. I let her tell me what she loved. And I was a stickler for kind of doing these core curricula, but really until 3 a.m. some nights I was up, and I'm a night owl, on YouTube watching reviews of curricula and reading websites and trying to figure out my daughter's teaching and learning style for both of us, to figure out where we could go in this journey and how we would start. And in March, I literally just kind of tasked myself. The first thing I bought, which you guys will know, is Torchlight. I just said, Torchlight Pre-K, this is great. It's great for both of my kids, and they both took to it. We're actually going to be finishing out pre-K very soon, and I already had bought the next level, because I wanted to just kind of continue that for us.
That's funny. You're the second eclectic homeschooler that we've interviewed. We just released an episode, I think, today, and she was very similar to you, where she liked to kind of switch it up. She's also an educator as well. Is there something with you being an educator that you gravitate to the eclectic mix, that you like that style? Is there something there?
Yeah. So my own teaching philosophy stems from problem-based learning and narrative pedagogy. So narrative pedagogy is basically storytelling. My
Mm-hmm.
kids love stories. I mean, I am such a poor deliverer of story time, bedtime stories. My husband is fantastic. He can create. My daughter literally will give him a topic and he'll just run with it, whereas I am not that creative. I can share very truthful stories and anecdotes, and they love those as well. So I
Mm-hmm.
definitely use that, and I know that my kids love books and literature, and so I could have gravitated towards that philosophy, but instead I wanted to bring it all together. And so I really fully believe in a multisensory learning environment. So I want to get at the audio, the auditory, and the visual, and the kinesthetic, and the cognitive domains, so that I can offer all of this and sort of figure out. And I think I'm still figuring out what style my daughter is and what my style my son is. And they're two different, definitely learning styles.
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter is more adaptive, and my son is more of a he's very prescriptive in nature. You know, he
Mm-hmm.
likes memorization. Like the other day we were playing Dragonwood and he's like, "Oh, 3 plus 3, 6." I had no idea he would know that. And maybe he's
Mm-hmm.
just learning hearing, my daughter, or maybe he's just learning. I have no idea where he's learning from. But,
Game schooling for the win.
Yeah, game
yes,
schooling.
game schooling for the win. So, I think that it's very unique. And another thing that sort of informs my own teaching is problem-based learning,
Mm-hmm.
whereby, if I give a problem to my nursing students and I ask the right questions and they take a turn. It's almost like a choose your own mystery to
Mm-hmm.
figure out what you need to know. And so problem-based learning, a lot of people attribute it to like case studies and things like that. And I think that real world connection is really helpful in learning, well, how will you apply this in the future? And so I like those kind of curricula that you can see where it's going and what it's not just 3 plus 3, but it's like, oh, when you go to the counter and your mom, or you're baking
Yeah.
something and you really need to add all of these ingredients together, how you'll do that and why this is so important. So I like that application as well as the thinking and the thought process, because then I can interrupt as the guide by the side and say, okay, well, let's think about this. And so,
Mm-hmm.
and I can help her, navigate this critical thinking pathway.
With the problem based learning, do you do a lot of do you find yourself doing a lot of almost call and response type of things, like in the sense that you're the mentor, you're doing the Socratic method, trying to tease out the knowledge, having them discover the answers through the process? Is that what you're trying to what you do a lot of?
Yeah. So, not well. I wouldn't say that it's well aligned to the Socratic method. I think
Okay.
it's actually more open than that. There's definitely areas where it can be a very concrete, prescriptive answer, but for
Mm,
the most part, you can go any pathway. It's like when you
understood.
have one term like diabetes, and then
Hmm.
you know the student would ask a question in themselves to say, okay, well, what are the types? What are the treatments? What are the medications? So I want my daughter to be able to say, here's this very broad topic. Like, let's say we were talking about, the circulatory system. And I want her to be able to ask me questions. She was talking about the veins in the back of her hand. And so I said,
Hmm.
oh, why are they, the color that they are? Or what kind of blood do they carry? And it was a very interesting thing, because then we could open up a book and sort of navigate this question together. And so she's not at the age like my doctoral students who could go find out that information
Hmm.
together, but she can definitely get the reference book to say, like, okay, here's where it is. So veins carry blood to the heart, so that was very insightful. And I think it's meaningful, because then later she and my son were playing, doctor, and
Hmm.
she's
Hmm.
she's teaching my son about this, which is also, it was very sweet, because the Montessori classrooms are, they have multiple age groups within them. And so I love seeing that teaching continue. And it shows me that I did something right, right? So that she can teach it back to somebody else.
Yeah, I totally am very sympathetic to what you described there with that kind of that question and say, let's go find the answer. There's in the homeschooling community, there's a lot of that kind of intrinsic motivation, go to find, learn the tools and the skills to go find the knowledge. Unschooling is a popular version of that, maybe more to the extreme than most. Do you find yourself gravitating to those learning methods and learning styles as opposed to following more of a like you said, you use Torchlight, but do you find yourself going to more of that discovery based learning?
Yeah, we have curriculum that I have invested a lot of money in. So we definitely prescribe to a curriculum, but it's what those, I never knew what a rabbit trail was until I was a homeschooler. But, if we find something that my daughter is very interested in, or my son is very interested in. For instance, we were playing Animal Crossing, and one time they talked
Hmm.
about this beautiful butterfly, and then my son brought me this book, and he said, "Oh, look, this is the same butterfly," and so then we were talking about the time that we had caterpillars and they became monarch butterflies, so I'm okay going and using what I call our time for homeschool down these rabbit trails
Hmm.
to uncover more of what's they're interested in. I think they're so young that if I don't follow their passion and their interests, that then they might lose that love of learning. And that's
Hmm.
what I really want to instill in them. I call my homeschool Grateful Academy because I'm so grateful for this opportunity and I really want them to learn to love learning. So
Yeah.
that's a really bad way to say it, but that's exactly what I want them to love learning and actually just continue it for the rest of their life, whether they're in school or out of it.
Yeah, one of the things that I've realized in the last about 2 years of doing the homeschooling with the younger ones, that they do have this just an amazing capacity to, learn anything
Mhm.
and to,
Be interested in
and be
everything.
interested in everything. And it's shocking. Were you surprised at that too? Being, you're obviously an educator for adults. Was it interesting to see the process play out in younger people?
Yeah, I'm completely blown away by how knowledgeable these young creatures are. Everyone loves their own kids, and we all,
Mhm.
think that they're amazing beings. And once I became a homeschooling mom and my husband being a homeschooling dad, we're just amazed at how creative our children are,
Hmm.
how focused, and although they're very fidgety like all kids, but
Yeah,
they're very I'm just blown away sometimes by their questions or their remembrance. I remember just talking about the silent E, and here I am thinking my daughter is just like not going to get it, and then the
yeah.
very next day where she remembers things better than I do, better than adults for sure. But
Yeah.
I think that they are just sponges who want to absorb all of this. And the more we give them, the more they'll get at this young age. And so I'm literally blown away. I also admire all of those Montessori's teachers who influence
Hmm.
my kids along the way. They have very tough jobs, and I learned that very quickly. But at the same time, our family is thriving in this
Hmm.
environment, and I've never. I always tell my boss that's the best that she always says, well, how's it being a first grade teacher? And I say it's the best job in the world, and I am learning along the way. We use All About Reading as well, and so learning these little, I'm like,
Hmm.
did I ever learn this? Like,
No,
did I know
No.
phonics? I'm
no,
like, no. What? Like the ER and the IR and the
no.
UR, they all say like what?
I learned more grammar from my Spanish class than
Yes.
I ever did from my English
Yes.
class.
Yes.
Listen. I have an engineering degree, okay? And I've seen some stuff in Right Start Math that I'm like,
Yes.
I never learned to do that. I have a degree in engineering. You know how much
Yeah.
math I've taken?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But he'll be like, "Oh, we're doing this cool exercise." I go, "What?" He goes, "Oh,
Yeah.
well, if you group things like this and do that, it makes this." I go, "It
Yes.
does?" I feel like
Yes.
it's kindergarten math. I feel like I'm being schooled by my daughter's homeschool curriculum.
Yeah, yeah. I'm definitely learning that. I'm learning a lot. I have my little jokes with my boss. The committee is a group of vultures, and so I told her that's why I'm not going to volunteer for any more committees. And so, and the triangle is the strongest shape. You must know that as an engineer. I did not know that. So there's a lot of things I'm
Well,
learning. Absolutely.
we have these technical backgrounds, and our daughter is very much into ancient Egypt, and so we are learning just amazing things that
Oh yeah,
we. I mean, I don't know. I did that in second grade, I think, and then I don't remember
yeah,
studying more about
exactly.
it. But
Right.
it's really interesting to see the things that capture their
Hmm.
imagination. So you talked a little bit about you're something that got your daughter excited, and then she's working with your son. What is the dynamic of two, and what things do you pair together, and what do you separate, and how does the juggle work with that? We're particularly selfishly interested because our children have the exact same age gap. Although they're younger, they have the same age gap.
Teach us, Obi-Wan, Teresa.
Well, I don't know that I have a perfect, solution to how every day is different. And my kids get along, which is fantastic. And my daughter has always taken this very motherly role to my son. And whether it's just who she is or whether it's been her Montessori classroom, I don't know. But they seem to just love to work together, which has been amazing. And I involve my son with everything we're doing. And so, whether it's a read aloud or whether it's working on a science experiment or whether it's, I don't know, building something, he has an active role in everything we do. Whether he chooses to participate or not is another thing. But I have it's our dining room. So we basically transformed it into a homeschool room because we never actually had a dining room table. It was always kind of an extra playroom for them. We have like a side little toy cubby thing. It's a very common thing that everyone has.
Yeah.
And so he can take down whatever he wants. Or many times I'll just suggest, hey, play with your magnetiles or take out your model magic or do some Play-Doh, whatever he wants to do, his blocks. And he'll do that, And so he kind of occupies his time. Sometimes, like today, he was just hitting, we have this little play horse thing and he was just hitting a little stuffed ball with that, so I'm very open because he's 3 years old. And so I think he's picking up things with, I'm not formally instructing him, although he does like workbooks and he does like to sit down, but I don't have a plan for him. So it's more so when he wants to do things, he does them. But, we were walking in a park the other day and he picked up something and he said, oh, look, this is the seed of a gum tree, which, if you remember from Torchlight, like that was like one of the first lessons. And I'm like, what? Like, so I know he's absorbing things and maybe it's not through the formal instruction, but he is absolutely involved. And, my daughter does in the morning time, we have these work boxes set up. So I have like one drawer that says morning work and afternoon work. So my son wanted that and he hasn't opened his morning work in many weeks. And that's okay because, I just wanted to offer it to him. So when he's ready, he's going to initiate and I know he'll want to learn. But in the meantime, he's just kind of along for the ride. And he's gotten into that rhythm. Before he used to actually take a nap. He no longer takes naps. So, we've had to adjust our homeschool schedule based on his needs and our family needs. And, we just find a new rhythm every time there's a change that happens to us.
Did him losing the nap happen in this last year?
Yes, it did.
Oh, okay. And
So-
then what was it like before that? And then what was it like after that? Because I just made a big change because my youngest lost the morning nap, but I still am retaining the afternoon nap. And I've been leveraging that as kind of like, a teaching time frame. But she's also 2 and not 3. So
Yes.
what was that like
Yes.
when it shifted?
So it happened right around his 3rd birthday. And so he decided, it's not for him anymore. And so, so my daughter will always do her morning work after breakfast. And really her morning work is like, it can be like a mini Luke logic game or I don't know, a puzzle or something else. And then it might have a writing assignment or some type of math assignment. I try to do language and math together. And then she also does have an afternoon one. And some days, if that's all she does, I'm okay with that. But I like to also structure in like her all about reading or maybe something related to spelling or phonics or something related to art. And I think I said math and, all the maths that we use. But, we try to do every day is different in our house, I have to say. And so during the nap period, like when my son would take a nap, and it was about an hour, maybe sometimes a little bit more, my daughter and I would do that formal one-on-one instruction. And that was like such a great rhythm for us. And now, ever since that stopped, we've had to kind of just fall into a natural other rhythm. And so sometimes that's when my husband, gets off of work, we'll do it right before dinner time. Sometimes
Okay.
it's later in the evening. We've done 1 or 2 weekends just to catch up. Although my daughter's always kind of been ahead, so I've never felt that I've been behind. But just if she asks for it, I'm like, sure, let's just get one done. So that has really changed us. And so now we're more of that evening. We go into the evening hours.
Mm-hmm.
And I always think, or I was always told by people who advise me on homeschool, that kids work better in the morning. And so that's why I think those work boxes are so important to us, that she's able to do that. And most mornings we try to do, I used to do a morning basket. I used to. And now, we'd play like a game like, I think it's called Head Talk Tails Walk. I think that's what
Oh,
it's
that is
called.
an excellent game.
Yes. So, and everybody got into that, and that was a good warm up for us. We'd sing songs and we'd do some memory work, and we just have a good time. And then um I did like binders for them, and I did all the Velcro stuff, and I was just like, okay, they don't like that. So we're just going to ditch that for now. And now my son loves it. So
Yeah.
I never know what they'll pick and choose. And then we did Torchlight for a while. So we don't necessarily have a, like, I'm okay changing things up. And so that's why I feel like I'm more eclectic, because I'm kind of letting them tell me what they like. And so the other day I was mentioning to my daughter, I'm like, let's do Torchlight. And I said, Torchlight is homeschool, let's just do that. And she's like, Torchlight is homeschool? Hold on, like, so they're just having fun, I think, throughout this process. And she sees mainly her work boxes and maybe the time that she gets with me or my husband doing like those formal lessons as homeschool, and the rest is just kind of fun. And she was surprised board games were also homeschool or game schooling. So I let out too many secrets, I think, early on. I should have kept them, but
Keep those cards close.
So
yeah.
so you said, you weren't sure exactly what to expect when you started homeschool, and now it's become all these things. You've got all these eclectic pieces. What did you think about homeschooling prior to starting, and like how has I'm obviously you have a completely different perspective now. Like what's that delta for you?
Yeah. Yeah. So I always thought that homeschooling moms could absolutely not work. And for a while, I even thought, well, should I reevaluate my career and figure out, something different? And, that would have been a really last minute decision for me. And I kind of decided last minute to do this. Even though I had been researching things and we've been doing it since March, I was unsure what September would bring. And I really wanted to evaluate the pandemic for our family needs. And so that was definitely one of those preconceived notions where I wasn't sure that I could work and balance this. And one of the things that I learned slowly is that I had to I describe this to my to my friends and family as my husband and I are sort of tag team wrestlers, which sounds really really
Yep.
awkward, but like we're tag teaming each other throughout the day. So as I have a meeting, then he's stepping in with the kids, and then I'm tagged out, or he's tagged in, I'm tagged out. So and then we do that, and we do the same thing with homeschooling. And so I realized that there's times where my job is mainly I teach asynchronously, but I do have synchronous sessions. So largely I take meetings in the evening or I work late into the night so that I can balance this thing. And so for me, being immersed in with my kids and being 100% present has really added and heightened to their excitement towards learning. And that was definitely something that I thought could not be done. And after, I would say about a month of doing it, I was like, oh, this isn't, we can do this. We can do this. And, I had a really good group of friends who also made the decision to homeschool. And just that, those group chats or reading things on Facebook and getting inspired or watching YouTube videos or hearing these great podcasts, I would be really just motivated and inspired. And I'm not an elementary school teacher, and I'm still in awe of everything that they do. But I figured my daughter is getting this one-on-one learning experience that both of us will look back on and hopefully just smile and kind of remember these really great times between us. And between my son as well, he's never excluded from our learning process.
You said you tag in, with your duo there. Does your husband also do some homeschooling as well, or is it primarily on your plate right now?
Yeah, so I definitely am the primary teacher, I'll say. He is a
Hmm.
really good substitute. My daughter prefers me, no one likes a substitute all times. So he's great. He's really, really energetic, and he's so, again, creative, and he's new to it, and some of the curricula that I have chosen really prescribes to, you know, it's not so teacher intensive in that, you can kind of read the prompts, like, for instance, all about reading, right? You can read the prompts, or spelling, he's kind of gotten the rhythm. So if I have a meeting, then he can step in and definitely, finish up for the day. And sometimes we only get to one or two things, and that I'm okay
Hmm.
with that. I used to look at my planner at the end and say, oh, maybe we should have done one or two more lessons. But I feel like I've been doing this for a year, and we're so beyond where I thought I would be that
Hmm.
I'm okay with where we are, and it's okay to take a day off and not. But my husband has definitely kept up with this, and he is our PE teacher, so he,
Hmm. That's
he will
good.
take them out, and I get a break, and so he loves that high energy thing. We got Ring Fit recently, and so we've been all doing that and getting our indoor exercise while it's like snow on the ground and ice and everything else. So that's been
Hmm.
fun. But he has definitely he loves history too, so he
Cool.
can, I'm telling him to start maybe thinking about teaching her more of history. And so we also have been doing, so I'm a secular homeschooler, but we also
Hmm.
have, like, I have a religion as well, so it's a Sikhism. So he's been doing a lot with Sikh history and teaching, and he's teaching her our written language, which is Gurmukhi. So that's
Hmm.
also another role that he's kind of taken on. And so I'm like, you do that, I'll do this. This is awesome. Like, she'll never get this again. So my son as well is getting the same experience.
A few moments ago, you said the P word, and Ariel kind of shivered. Planning.
Oh, I love
The
planning. I'm
you
such a
said
planner.
you said you're a night owl. How much time do you spend planning your week, maybe your month? With respect to your eclectic nature of education, how much time do you spend kind of organizing things, planning things, keeping things rolling? What is that time
And
commitment?
and what are you using primarily to do your planning?
Yeah. So for work, I am completely computer app, everything driven. And for homeschool, I have been using and retreated back to my paper planner, and it's just worked
Analog,
for me.
nice. Yeah, that's good.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so, I at one point had watched a YouTube video. It was a brilliant YouTube video on somebody who used like graph paper to like map out assignments, and then they just colored in boxes as they were doing lessons. And I was like, that spoke to me somehow, some way. And it was this easy visual that I could just include. And so I started doing that, then I stopped, and now I just like kind of tear out the like beginning of the book, like little check off sheets, and I just stick them in a binder on my desk. And so, or they're in a happy planner. And so I use that, and that has been really helpful. And so as far as planning, I will do a little bit on Sunday nights where I'll kind of look over what I want to get done and what my goals are. And with Torchlight, I always promise my kids that if we're doing all of this reading, and if we're, dancing around and singing, the alphabet songs and things like that, that we can either do an art project or a science project. And so both of my kids love that, and I know that about them. And so they're always excited to see, well, what's going to be our art project, or what's going to be our science project. And so that is something that I kind of think out through the week. And we kind of do it sometimes only in 3 days, and sometimes in 4 days. But for the most part, I can just sit and read for a very long time, and both of them will be engaged and they love it. And so then that art project or the science project afterwards is really important to them. So I'll do that. And then in order to set up my daughter's work boxes, like let's say I did a math UC lesson with her, then I would rip out the pages that she would need to do, and then I just put them in her work box. So that usually takes me about 5 to 10 minutes
Mm.
most nights. And the days I forget, she loves it, because then she doesn't have to do anything for the morning work. And so I also like to give her some of those days like, oops, mommy forgot, even though mommy doesn't usually forget, just so that she gets a break from that rhythm. I love to vary it up because I think that's life. And, I want her to embrace the changes and kind of be adaptable to all of that and just be as flexible as, all of us need to be in life.
That's wonderful. Do you do any planning with respect to like what the state requires from you? I think you're in Maryland, if I'm right. Is there
I was
anything?
born and raised in Maryland, but I'm in
Okay.
New Jersey. And
Oh,
so
you're in Jersey. Okay.
I'm in
Okay.
Jersey, yeah. So yeah, so in the state of New Jersey, it's been very relaxed as far as rules and regulations for homeschool. So there's no evidence that we need to show that we're homeschooling or that there's no testing that we have to do, at least at this level. And that may change in the future. And I've heard of legislation, but as of right now, it's a very relaxed state.
That's wonderful. Now, you also mentioned you had, friends and people who also jumped into homeschooling. Have you seen, in your, people that jumping into homeschooling and enjoying it as well? Have you been able to provide some learning to them as well?
Yeah, so for a long time, we talked in a group of friends, and we have met in parks in a safe
Yeah.
social distance environment with masks and everything else. We've had lessons, together. And once the weather got really cold here, we kind of stopped and we're hoping to pick up again, especially
Hmm.
since it's hopefully getting to be safer as far as going out and meeting. But we have met in some local parks. We've done some play dates and things like that and group lessons. I was supposed to do one virtually on Zoom related to anatomy and physiology, which is a course that I used to teach. And so we all use our talents, and I happen to be in a group where there's a lot of former teachers. So I'm very,
Mm.
very lucky because they can pick up any subject, and I can only do the sciences really, and maybe some math. But so I've been blessed in that regards.
So you've embarked with this group, and we're kind of curious, looking at how many people have picked up homeschooling with COVID, and how many will stay, after all this is done and schools are all back to normal, everyone's been vaccinated and everything is quote unquote normal again. Will you continue homeschooling, and you're in your surrounding group, do you think that many or some of them will continue homeschooling as well?
Yeah, I think as far as our group is concerned, I think most of them will continue homeschooling. Everyone
Wow.
who I've talked to has really fallen in love with that,
Wow.
fallen in love with homeschool. Um, a lot of them again are former teachers, and so maybe that was a trajectory for them already. As far as us, we're kind of still undecided. As of right now, we're going to homeschool for next year, but the state of the pandemic and this and safety is the most important thing for me. So
Hmm.
we're going to evaluate our family needs, and as of right now, I would love the opportunity to homeschool again. It's something that's so rewarding to me personally. And I hope, my daughter says that she doesn't want to go back to school. She wants to homeschool. So I love that. My son I don't even know. So, I think he's just along for the ride, which is great too. But I think both of them are kind of just enjoying and loving this special time.
We've talked about this a couple times on the podcast that we feel that this period, even though it's been very, very difficult for a lot of people, it has been the kind of the silver lining has been this kind of closeness that our family has had,
Hmm.
where we've all been crammed in for, better or worse, sometimes crammed into this house, and you're not able to do a lot of things. We have had to be together. And I think that closeness, Ariel always says, she was not, she was off at work for our first one and while she came up, kind of came of age, and she's been able to be here for our youngest one, when she was born and all the way until she's about 2 now. I think that connection, that closeness, I think is something we'll always look back to. Do you if you could, would you go the distance? Would you homeschool all the way if it is something that works for you guys? Is that something that's interesting to you, or is it? Do you feel like there might be a natural cutoff for you somewhere?
So I thought about homeschooling in the for the long haul. And
Yeah.
many times, I've talked to my husband even for just safety concerns related to our food allergies. My daughter has multiple food allergies. And
Hmm.
so, should the need arise in the future, that's something I want to know that I have a backup plan. I always like
Hmm.
having a plan B, C, and all the way to Z for
Hmm.
us. That's just who I am. And so, I always want to know that I can do this. And so this experience has really shown me that I can do it. And I would like to continue for as long as I can.
It's one of those things. Even us, and we run a homeschool podcast.
Yeah.
We've thought a lot about it. We want to homeschool, but even for us, I would say that our answer is the same. We want to homeschool for as long as it works for us.
Hmm.
And hopefully that isn't just next year,
Yeah.
because we'd like to keep doing this and we love it. And that's one of the things I think about is, as much as it's for our kids, we get so much out of it. It's
Yeah.
like a family. It's a way of living for all of us. And I know we would be really sad if our kids didn't want to do it. Luckily, they love it.
She has no choice. It's propaganda 24/7.
It is propaganda, but we love it. We love the closeness, and we love the kind of family life that it gives us. But we too are in the same boat, as long as it works
Yeah.
for us. If
Well,
it doesn't, then
Right.
it's not helping anybody.
and if a few times, I mean, I've been doing this for 5 years now, and it's stay at home.
The stay at home part, not the homeschool part.
Yeah, not the
Yeah.
homeschool thing too.
Yeah.
Every time I've thought about not saying anything about your situation or anything, but every time I've thought about, okay, maybe I need to go back and do the grind again,
Yeah, go back
and
to work
and I've always just gone through the thought experiment of do I want to be doing meetings at 11 and 6 in the morning, and and answering email at 3 in the morning when I got to go to the bathroom, and it's just like those are things I don't want to do.
you
And
had an unusually
I
stressful
had
job.
I had an unusually stressful job, but I would probably go right back into something like that. I just know myself. But like every time I think through it, I go, no, it's way more important what I'm doing for them. I've already had a decent long career that, I've had that experience. This is probably a better experience for me, for them. And I've got other outlets too as well. But I've had to go through that, periodically I have to have that kind of reset, internally, for myself. I've had to do
Yeah.
that a few times.
Yeah, is it still working? Is it still worth it? I
Yeah.
think it's such a rewarding thing to see
Right.
all those light bulb moments. I'm not saying I'm jealous of the teacher, but I don't want that to happen. Matt said with our
Homeschooling 1-year-old is great, but homeschooling 31-year-olds is
Oh yeah, no. The thing is, Matt was home with our oldest, when she kind of went from the baby to the toddler stage and made all those leaps while I was working. And I missed that. And as much as he sent me pictures and video and things,
Mhm.
I felt like I missed out on that. And now I'm getting that with our younger daughter, because I'm here and I'm working remotely as well. But that's how I feel about homeschool. Like,
Right.
all those things that our daughter is getting out of all of her learning, like, she runs down the stairs in the middle of
Mhm.
lesson, and as long as I'm not on the phone, or honestly, as long as my mic is muted, it's cool.
Yeah.
She bursts into the office and says, mommy, look at this thing I just did. And I say, wow, honey, that is great. She goes, yeah, see ya.
Right.
She's so excited. And I'm like, man, she was at school, I would miss this. Like, I
Mm.
wouldn't
I know.
know that she just made this breakthrough. And that would just make me so sad to have missed the moment,
Mhm.
selfishly,
Yeah.
to have
Yeah.
missed it.
We've talked a couple times about parent partnerships and co-ops and things of that nature. Have you looked into that as an option as well, to kind of offload a little bit of learning on, into more of a community,
Yeah.
or
Just recently.
or in a pod? It sounds like you guys
Yeah.
kind of have like a light pod there.
Yeah, yeah. And our pod hasn't really met over the winter much. And so I'm
Okay.
hoping we pick up again. I have looked into um I think it's called a forest school, and I just
Oh yeah.
started looking at that. And there is also a school that you can kind of drop in for lessons. And the Princeton area has a really great tight knit homeschooling community as well, and I've heard great things there. So it's not something that I've actively looked into, and I'm kind of, again, because of the pandemic, I think
Yeah.
those are sort of restrictions that, I'm hoping to explore a little bit, but not I really haven't done too much. exploration in that area. Not yet.
Yeah, I was just wondering because
Yeah.
that is we're going to be doing a parent partnership here in our
Mhm.
town where our daughter goes to kind of a kindergarten-y type of thing for about
Mhm.
2 days a week for about 3 hours. But we're going to be
Yeah.
doing our full curriculum homeschooling. But for us, we're kind of using that as kind of our enrichment thing, and it's through the local public school, so it would work for us, and it's close. So, um,
Yeah.
maybe we'll do we've kept you for 45 minutes. So I know you're late a night owl, so it's kind of early for you. Do
Still
you
early.
yeah, do you have any advice that you would have? You're a first year homeschooler, you've made it through the grind, you've come out on the other side. It's a great experience. Do you have any like wisdom or things that you wish you would have known when you started that you know now that you could pass on to that first year homeschooler who's just starting their first year?
So I know this will sound cliche, but it is to be flexible. And I am not the most flexible person because I do like that control and that planning a little bit. But I know that some days we're only going to do our core subjects. And some days, like today, we'll do it all. And we'll still have time for video games and fun and dance party and board games and things that really make our family what we are. And so I've always fallen back on if we're really having an off day, then let's just do read alouds and let's just sit and play some board games that my kids love and are still learning from. And sometimes we don't learn anything from board games, but most of the time we are learning something. That's what I always like to say. And so I think my best advice is the routine will come and it'll come when you're not looking and it'll change just like, my son stop napping. So he
Mhm.
decided he just wanted to stop. And so sometimes then at 7:30 at night, I had to pick up something with my daughter. And, whether she was tired or not, I had to reevaluate. And I said, okay, instead of doing this lesson now, let's table this and let's do it tomorrow because it's not going to be impactful. It's not going to be meaningful at this late of the day. I'd also say that sometimes that 15 minutes of prep work that I would do over the weekend just to put my sort of plan and goals for the week was really important so that I could set an expectation for me personally. The kids would never know what my goal was for the week, but I needed to know my intentions going in. So that was always very helpful.
Well, we really appreciate you being on the podcast. Is there something that you're doing on the side that you might want to share with people, or where can people follow, what you're doing?
Yeah, so I am starting, and I've kind of dabbled in this a little bit, although I haven't really given the love and attention it needs. But I have grown up with board games. It was one of those things that I just loved as a child. And it was that special time with friends and family where we could just sit down, be carefree, enjoy, laugh, have some fun, and play this really great game. And so
Mhm.
I just had good childhood memories growing up with board games. It's something that I continued throughout my life. And now, kind of experiencing games with my kids has just been it just melts my heart. It really does. I look forward to our board game nights. I Now we have something I just invented it called Fun Friday. And so we do a lot of board games, and I know there's a lot of fun Fridays out there. And so we used to just have board game night every Friday, and we do it so much more than just Fridays, but my kids look forward to it. I look forward to it. And now we get to play even more games and we're learning. And so I started a website called boardgamequeen.com, and my husband, who is a tech guy, got this up with me. And so it's kind of like our baby, and we're still developing it. And I really, once I stop teaching for this semester, I'm really going to give it my all to really publish a lot of reviews and kind of show what games our family loves. And not only the kids what they love, but what we love, on our date nights, or, I don't want to say date nights. They're really what pandemic date nights, right?
Yeah,
So
that's what we do.
so I
Dinner after 8 and a romantic board game. Oh yeah,
Oh
yes,
yeah,
we've been
there's
there.
been
yes,
many a game of Space Base after the kids
yes,
have gone to bed with
yes.
some pizza, and yeah.
Yeah, so that's exactly the same here. And it's actually gotten us through like a really like sometimes we just need that, and need that
Mhm.
outlet alone as a couple and then also with the family. And so it's our go-to thing. And I just love, love, love the memories that I have growing up with board games and now I get to continue great feeling with my kids. And so that's a website that I started. I do have an Instagram site. It's officialboardgamequeen.com. And I'm just starting to post little pictures from our homeschool experience. And I hope, again, I've published more on our website, but I'm hoping to really kind of, I always say our launch date is June 1st, although that date keeps shifting. So, as I get to it, I do have a blog schedule, and I finally kind of came up with something that I'm happy with and that I think is manageable for my roles. But I'm really, really excited about it because I want to share this with the world,
That's awesome.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
I'll be following. I'm always looking for a new game for my wish list.
The music was swelling. We were like, "Yes, keep going."
We love games.
We'll make sure to put all the links to all your stuff in Instagram and your website in the show notes. So if anybody's listening, just head down on the show notes. You can get it there.
Yeah.
But Tresa, thank you so much for joining us.
This was so great.
Congratulations on your first year of homeschool. We will send you your certificate in the mail.
I can't wait. Yeah, I love certificates. Thank you so much for having
make
me.
One up.
You do.
We should send out a digital certificate.
I'll leave it to you, Boozy. You're the creative one.
I'll get right on Canva and start making something.
Yeah. You need to make something really cool.
Once you do, I'll take a picture and I'll send it back to you.
Sign it and scan it and send it back.
Well, if you have the certification of Homeschool Together podcast, you've made it.
Yes. I have.
Do you need any other state requirement? No.
That's a win. I love it. So
awesome.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for joining us today and making us a part of your homeschool journey. Please engage with us on social media. Join our Homeschool Together podcast group on Facebook and find us at Homeschool Together Podcast on Instagram. We'd love to hear your feedback, questions, and recommendations. Until next time,
Happy homeschooling!